So it is always very important to keep in mind, and that if we analyze recordings or performances, we can give two types of description: a structure level description and a cognitive or a mental level description. A structure level description is according to the performance features. It's like according to what kind of micro-timing, dynamic variations, etc. are observable on the record. However, the cognitive, on the cognitive level, what we are interested in is the performer's competence in the Chomskyan sense, either the conscious or the non-conscious competence. And we are mostly interested in the generative rules of performance. So what kind of generative rules the performance in question can be described through. This cognitive level description can be based on a structure level analysis of the performer's sound recordings through close listening, for example, what we heard at the previous two talks. And if it's complemented by an analysis of oral history sources and performers' score additions, we can get a fairly comprehensive picture of the performer's competence, which has two seminal features. First of all, the performer's real-time direction of attention, so how the performer is attending to the musical flow during performance. And on the other hand, the performer's personal feeling, well, actually these are related a bit. So the performer's personal feeling or attitude towards individual elements of the music. For example, whether one performer is more interested in structuring the musical flow according to the tonal structure, or according to the metrical structure, the grouping structure, or is he, in contrast, more interested in or more involved in focusing on the characters? That is the direct expression of emotions during performance. And an important element of the feeling component is the empathizing, basically, which can be the empathizing with what we may call the content of music. So gestures, musical gestures, so movement patterns, characters, the tonal structure, the temporal structure, and the narrative structure of the piece. The German word einfühlen is much better to express this than the English, whatever it is in English. I mean, we don't have this. So you feel these elements while you perform. So how can we, the interesting question is whether you can uncover this feeling from based on a recording. And I would like to talk about this now. A few further reminders of important elements or features of analyzing recordings. It is important to distinguish between general features in a performance style, in a performance practice, and contrastive features, meaning that, for example, so in every single recording you can observe general, so common performance features which are common to almost all the eras. So, for example, lengthening long notes and shortening short notes is something we have done almost always, or changing the tempo according to actual information content of the music. This is much better observable in pre-Second World War recordings. However, even today's performers do it, but to not such an extent. Then there are style-based performance rules. For example, in the first half of the 20th century, the expression of musical gestures and characters, those more important for the majority of performers than the ostensive expression of temporal structure? Well, this is what Lewis was talking about. And then there are individual or personal performance characteristics. And regarding these, well, actually, this might be of interest, but I won't talk about this because I think that my second bullet point was very well touched upon by Lewis a moment ago. So, sorry, I wanted this. So individual or personal performance characteristics may include things like negative agogics. What I mean by negative agogics is what Lewis talked about. So I have this word for this, negative agogics. So you rush through. So they rush through, towards a moment and then they lengthen the moment. So, well, you might wish to use this word if you like after this. So, or the representation of it, or it is for one performer, the representation of the tonal structure can be much more prominent, much more important than that of the metrical or the grouping structure. So, for example, if you contrast Bartók and Dohnányi, who also have recordings of that capriccio, and you talked about that. It's clear that Dohnányi has a much clearer focus on the tonal. So he's much more focused on the tonal structure all the time, whereas Bartók is much more structurally focused, much more focused on the temporal structure, so the metrical and the grouping structure. And this means also a shift in performance aesthetics, actually. So Bartók is a bit more modernist, despite the fact that they were born just 4 years apart from each other. But the last thing here listed on this slide is the most interesting, and in the second part of my talk, I would like to talk about this. So can you discern from a recording whether a performer has a kind of an overarching feeling of the structure of the piece, in contrast to the performers who are much more locally focused while playing, while performing. And for this, what we need is, besides close listening, so besides the analysis besides the structural analysis of the performance, we need to apply complex, higher level statistical methods to uncover this. For example, such methods can explore long-term correlations in microtiming patterns, which then reveal key elements of a performer's competence, such as the overarching structural logic. Factor analysis and principal component analysis are these methods for this. The potential of factor analysis has been demonstrated by Bruno Repp already in the 1990s in one of his, I think, most interesting studies, most insightful studies about the aesthetic value of a quantitatively average performance. You know, a quantitatively average face is more appealing than, in average, it is more appealing than individual faces. So if you just assemble pictures, so photos of faces, of our faces, for example, here, and we make an average, a quantitative, so a geometrical average of our faces here, statistically, so in general, it will be more, the average will be more appealing to people than the face of any of us. And this applies to music performance as well, and this is what was demonstrated through factor analysis by Bruno Repp in the 1990s in this paper, in this absolutely superb paper. Let's go now to the analysis of two recordings. I would like to contrast now two recordings for you and demonstrate what this type of analysis, what this type of factor analysis, or in this case, principal component analysis, which is just a variant, it's very similar to factor analysis, can reveal in terms of the performer's overarching structural logic. So, two recordings of the Kreutzer Sonata by Beethoven will be contrasted in a moment. I would like to show you the beginning of this sonata in one historical recording. I won't tell you who's playing here. Just the beginning. So next slide. I hope it will play. I've even embedded these. Anyway, oh yes, it does. Select the item to grant access. Okay, anyway, this is this. I hope it will. Okay, this is the first one. Let me show you the second one. this point, may I ask you? Well, I was trying to observe you how you attend to both performances. Well, there are 4 musicians here in question. So, one is 1, one is 2, pianist 1, pianist 2. So, may I ask you to vote at this point? So, so who would go to the concert of the first violinist? Who would go to the concert of the first violinist? Okay, hands up if, yeah. In contrast to the second one, let's say, yes. Okay, good. Well, I noted. Well, who would go to the second one? In contrast to the first one? Could you raise your hands a bit higher? No, you can't. Well, okay. Who would go to the concert of the first pianist? Hands up. 2, 3. The second pianist? Everybody else? Hands higher, please. Oh, it's okay. That's a very clear, actually, answer. What you had. So basically, the musician number 4. So the second pianist has. He won, or she won. Actually, it's he. So the 2 recordings are these. The first recording was Fritz Kreisler and Franz Rupp, whom you may not know. This was a pianist. Kreisler recorded all these sonatas, all the Beethoven sonatas with. And the second recording, so it's not in this order, sorry. The second recording is the Bartók, Szigeti Bartók recording. So you voted for Béla Bartók as a pianist, which is not necessarily surprising, at least to me. And why? Regarding Bartók, so important fellow musicians with whom he gave concerts, like Klemper, or students like Földes, Hernadi, and another one. So they wrote these things about Bartók. So you might wish to browse this for a moment. And may I go further a bit? So if you go to the begin, yes? I know, yeah, sure. I can go further. So if you go to the beginning, if you go to this part, so just the beginning, just the first few bars of the introduction of the piano, so the half period, so the first four bars, and you compute the differences between the differences between the note onsets. So the differences between basically the note length. I don't know. So the beats, the 8th beats, the 8 note beats this time length. You get this chart, which means basically that Bartók is more rhapsodic. So he's more the differences between the notes are quite not the notes, the beats are quite more rhapsodic. I would like to show you this. The secondary subject group in the recapitulation starts like this for the first pair, that is Kreisler and Rupp. For Szigeti and Bartók, it sounds like this. short excerpt still, and an analysis, and a final analysis for the final minute. The beginning of the development sounds like this. Oh, sorry. The beginning of the development sounds like this for Roop. Whereas for Bartók and Szigeti, it sounds like this, the same except. This is portrayed for Roop versus Bartók on this chart. So again, you can see that basically they slow down at the same places. I mean, they understand the structure of the music similarly. However, Bartók is much more rhapsodic again. So you can't really anticipate when the next note will come. Whereas in Roop you can quite well anticipate this. And that's basically the last slide here. And the and the point of the entire thing, which is the result of a principal component analysis of this and the continuation of this section. So the beginning of the development. So here you can see the two first principal components of the series of the quarter notes. In this time quarter note beats microtimings, following a principal component analysis based on 8-dimension vectors built on the adjacent microtiming data. And for this, I thank my colleague who is a mathematician and physician with whom we carried out this research. There will be an acknowledgement in a moment for him. What you can see on this slide is it's just a portrayal. It doesn't mean anything basically, but it's just. but if you have a mathematician's mind, you can see a certain orderedness in Bartók's whatever it is, patterns. And what this means, this chart basically, is the following. So Bartók's it means two things. Bartók's performance is richer in information. It is less predictable than Roop's. So it is much harder to predict Bartók's playing with linear mathematical models on the short term. So you never know when the next note will come. Whereas, regarding microtiming patterns that are uncorrelated, Bartók's performance displays at least phrase pattern levels, which means that on the long term, on the long run, Bartók's performance is much more ordered than Roop. So Roop is ordered on the short term, whereas he's not ordered. So his mind is not able to kind of oversee the large structure, whereas Bartók's does. But in contrast, Bartók is also always tremendously interesting because you can never know when the next beat will come or the next note will come, and this is what I think. This is a kind of a key to the ingenuousness of the playing of someone like Bartók's, and this is a personal, individual characteristic feature of someone like Bartók. So this was my colleague with whom I worked, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, László, and thank you for respecting the time.